Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Namita. If you are new here on this channel, we talk about master's life, work life and many more things. This is video 2 of the series to perfect your master's degree application. Today we are talking about one of my most favorite topics ever, statement of purpose, SOP. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe because this series is going to get so interesting and so helpful. And with that said, let's get started. Let's start with what is SOP. Now, SOP literally stands for Statement of Purpose. It's a letter of intent that you send out to the university as part of your application, telling them why you think you will be a great addition to their program, why you think you are worthy of an admit, and why you think and how you think you will add value to the university. Now, if you were to ask me, I think SOP carries about 50% weightage of the application, simply because the only way a deciding committee, a decisions committee is able to judge you is with your entrance exam scores, with your resume, with your letters of recommendations. But an SOP gives you an option to paint a beautiful picture of you with the committee. So for me, SOP is the perfect way to tell the university the aspects of you that haven't been captured in the other material. An SOP will contain topics about your education, your background, work experience if you have any, your other interests, your extracurricular activities, your research about the university, and all of this put together, telling the university why you will be a great addition. Now, one of the first don'ts I will tell you is this. It might seem a little weird, but when you want to write an SOP, do not read somebody else's SOP until you write your own. Now, unless you're somebody who absolutely hates writing and have only ever written essays because you are required to, then yes, go for it, read a couple of SOPs to get an idea and then write one. But otherwise, if you're somebody who has the ability even remotely to talk about your life, do it. Obviously, it's going to be not the greatest SOP because it's the first draft. Trust me, I think I had about 15 drafts of my SOP, and my first draft is like cringe galore. I still hate it, but it taught me what I was not supposed to do. Why is this important is simply because when you read maybe 4 or 5 SOPs, you will start thinking in the same language that the other people's SOPs whom you have just read were thinking when they wrote theirs. But an SOP will be really effective if it reflects you as a person, if it talks about you as a person. So write one. It's going to be really bad, and then take somebody else's SOP and read it. Maybe 3, maybe 4. I think I've read about 6 to 8 SOPs, and I also made sure that I read SOPs that were not just MIS ones. I remember reading electrical engineering SOPs, mechanical SOPs, just to give myself the gist of what needed to change with my draft 1. I'm going to talk about what not to do again. This is literally one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to SOPs. When people talk about how they knew they would grow up to be somebody who would want a master's degree when they were like 3-year-old. You guys, I have read it in so many SOPs, it's a huge cliche, and if you were to ask me, it really doesn't sound sincere either. I mean, now me personally, I don't really have much memories of how I was and what my life was like when I was like maybe, I don't know, 3 or 5 years old, simply because it's so far into my past. Like, I'm 27 now. I truly don't remember how I was 26, 25, 24 years ago. So writing about your childhood in a way that I knew I wanted to pursue master's degree when I was 3 years old honestly does not sound sincere. If you were to talk about how you wrote your first program when you were 10 or 12 and then you were interested, that adds some meaning. But please don't talk about I was interested in toy cars so much I knew I would be a mechanical engineer. Honestly, any kid at the age of 3 or 5 or 6 is super interested in toy cars. I know it sounds a bit harsh, but if you get rid of such cliches, you already stand out simply because it's a cliche because it's a cliche. So by avoiding it, you're setting yourself apart. The next big thing to avoid on an SOP is talking about your achievement from school days. Even if you're somebody who has no work experience, if you are looking for achievement in your undergrad years, you are still good. Now, I remember when I wrote my first draft, I think the first paragraph of my SOP contained details about how I was one of the class toppers in my 10th grade exam. I got my SOP feedback from professionals as in my friends, who were already working here. They had already gotten their master's degrees here in MIS. And the first feedback I got was brutal. And they were like, what makes you think anybody cares about the grade you got, the rank you got, like literally 10 years ago? So don't talk about it. I have seen SOPs which mention their ranks or grades or prizes like in science Olympiads from 5th grade. Please don't do it. If you're a working professional and you got employee of the year or like a best performance kind of certificate, talk about it, but do not over talk about it. You want to mention it maybe one time just to show that you excel at whatever you do, but that should not be the driving force of your SOP. Now let's talk about what to do when you write your SOP. The first thing, the really important thing is to research. An SOP carries a lot of weightage when it shows that you have put in work for the university's sake. Now, most of the SOPs you will be able to make little changes and submit to different universities because your intent, your background, your education will not change with every SOP. But what changes is what you fancy about the university. Now, you can do this very easily. Go on the college website, spend some time understanding the faculty, the work they are doing. If anything is open source and it's interesting to you, definitely research it, because when you mention the university's professors, the lecturers and the work they are doing and how it is relevant to you. Now, randomly mentioning a couple of professors' names will not do you any good, because honestly anybody can do that. Just go on the website, look up the faculty and list them. But taking interest in what interests you will make you look like the candidate who is worthy of an admit. So make sure that you research about the university, the course. You can also go ahead and research the alumni, so it gives you an idea of what is the outcome of the program on a personal level. You can even talk to them about it. You can tell them you're writing an SOP and ask for their inputs if they are willing to give that to you. Now, I'm going to cover little tips that will help you make your SOP look good. First things, I think the perfect length would be a page and a half. I think that's the sweet spot. Anything longer than that gets really boring. Remember that the decisions committee has tons and tons of application, thousands of ideal candidates hoping to get a seat. So don't bore them by writing 2 pages or 3 pages. Try to keep the length to about a page and a half. I think that comes down to if you write it in Times New Roman font with a font size of maybe 10 to 10.5, you should be good on an A4 size sheet. Remember to convert the document to PDF. And also about the font, I suggest using Times New Roman simply because it's easy to read, and at that font size it's easy on the eye to kind of understand and flow with the text. And keep it aligned in a justified selection. That also makes your letter of intent easy to read. Now, let's cover the next important aspect of SOP, getting feedback. I think the most important part of your SOP will be the people who are giving you feedback. So it's really important that you choose them wisely. If you have close friends, if you have relatives, cousins who already have their masters here, irrespective of what major they have, give them your SOP, because they'll be able to look at it with a third person's perspective, and that will help you knock down what you don't want in the SOP. Now, the golden standard rule that I use, no matter what I'm writing, maybe a report, maybe an email, is if I got rid of a couple of sentences, will the content still make sense? If it does, I get rid of it. Keeping things short and crisp really increases the readability. You don't want to drone on and on and on and bore everybody. Another thing to keep in mind is to use plenty of paragraphs. Huge paragraphs with no spacing are really difficult to read because there's only so much you can keep track of when you're skipping from line to line. I suggest breaking the paragraphs into smaller paragraphs with smaller sentences, maybe about 5 to 6 sentences or even 8, but not more than that, depending of course on the length of the sentences. Be sure to use proper punctuation, spellings, do not make grammatical mistakes. Typos are not cool, and I know this goes without saying, but please don't use texting language, and try to use a kind of an academia kind of a language, so you can replace colloquial words by using literally just you can use the synonym option on the Word document and use a more professional sounding word. Back to the feedback part of it, I think one of the greatest tips I can give you is what one of my friends did. He uploaded his Word document of his SOP on Google Docs and made it a shareable link, and he gave that to a few of his friends including me. I think one document was being shared to about 3 to 5 people, and all we had to do is add comments. So this helped him from getting repetitive feedback, first thing. Second thing, it made it easier for us because adding a comment is really easy in Word, and once he resolved it, we got a notification and we were able to go back and see if everything looks good. And the third thing was the feedbackers, us, were able to collaborate on the document, and finally he ended up with the most beautiful SOP I have ever written. I think it was not as good as mine, but it was pretty good. So try that tip. You can also send it as a PDF to somebody and they can easily add comments to it. Remember that whoever is giving you an SOP feedback has a life, they are busy. You want to make your SOP worth reading. So don't waste their time by giving them half-baked SOPs. You can take inputs before you start an SOP, but try and give them a pretty good halfway done SOP so they're able to give you constructive criticism instead of telling you to add a full stop here or a period there. Last but not least, please don't ask strangers on the internet for their SOP. Now SOPs, if you ask me, are kind of personal documents. Even me, I don't give my SOPs to anybody and everybody. I give it to my friends, and I give it to my friends who are being vetted by my friends. It's not that it's a super private document or anything. It is simply because it contains details about my life, my education, my work. It might be something that you can find on anybody's LinkedIn, but the way everything ties down makes it a kind of a personalized document. Also, you don't want to plagiarize. Now this is a big problem. Please don't plagiarize. Please don't copy somebody else's SOP and then change your names and change whatever is relevant to you and submit it. It is one of the worst things you can do for your application, and if you get caught, you have the possibility of being banned from applying to the university. So please don't copy, it's not cool. That's all I have for today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and also subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because next week we are talking about some common tips that will help you make a wonderful experience while writing your GRE and TOEFL. Those were the things I wish I knew before I gave my exams, and I will also be telling you about how to get great letters of recommendation. If you haven't watched part 1 of the series yet, I am going to leave it on the screen somewhere. Click it and let me know if you have questions. I will see you guys soon. Bye.